Hey folks, welcome back here to my channel Whiskey Wismar. My name is Christopher, and now for my 16th review I would like to present you another single cask bottling, this time not from Benriach, as I like to do and did recently quite a lot of them, but a Benriach. So for those in the know, for those who are familiar with these two distilleries, then you know that these were or still are part of the same or had the same management. Used to be Billy Walker and his South African friends. Now it is Rachel Berry and Brown Foreman. So this Benriach in particular is one of the many single cask releases that were or are introduced once or twice a year, and most of them actually fly under the radar for most folks. First of all, just too many releases these days, so you have countless of new bottles and bottlings that are released every week or so, and then many of these sort of tend to become less obvious and less known. So this is no exception. I had no idea that this batch, including this particular single cask release, was coming out or did come out in 2018, and hence my surprise when I stumbled upon it at a reasonable price. I got this one from auction for approximately 80 euros. You can still see the British tax stamp over here, and quite a bottling this is. Distilled in 2008, 18th of March, so and bottled in 2018, makes this 9 years old. Not a finishing as many of the Benriachs or many of the other single cask bottlings are like. So they are pretty forward when it comes to, or Benriach used to be pretty forward when it comes to releasing the statements on finishing or double maturation. In this case, however, it's full-time maturation in a port pipe. So peated port cask, Benriach quite versatile as a distillery. You have unpeated and peated expressions. This one now, I believe, always in this sort of beige, grayish livery, indicates then a peated release. Right, so many of the recent ones, even ranging up to 2019 releases from Benriach, still had Billy Walker's initials or Billy Walker's signature on it, as he then selected this specific cask for release. And this time, on this case, however, it's already Rachel Berry. So while of course it was distilled under Billy Walker, this was then selected and bottled by the designations of Rachel Berry herself. So we'll see how she fared with selecting this, and they certainly have quite a nice stock to choose from, and we'll see how this one fares. So I'll nose it, taste it, and then give it a mark as usual. And so let's see. Now, neat, it is pretty potent stuff. 61.7% ABV. We'll see whether this flies without adding any water, or whether this might even benefit from it. So, on the nose. Before we start, what does it say about the color? I'll try to avoid reading the official tasting notes. Deep ruby, something you would expect from a port cask matured. This looks more like a copper color. I could agree with the ruby, but in the glass it is more like a straightforward copper. Okay, now neat. The alcohol is not that noticeable really. It's there, of course. I mean, you can't hide almost 62% ABV with just 9 years of age. But it's very well integrated. Sweetness, a little bit of lavender and or some perfumey notes. Hard to pinpoint really. Lavender is what first comes to my mind. So floral perfumey note, but very minor. So nothing like the French War perfume from Beaumont's in of the yesteryear. No, nothing like that to be found here. It's very expressive really. The peat is not as in your face as many of the other much older releases, the Authenticus releases, or some of the little short hiccup there with my camera. So yeah, I was going to say, the peat is not in your face like many of the other older releases, the oddly named rum finished peated expression or port peated expression that all have these fancy names. No, not at all. It's very mild at first nosing, pretty intense on the sweetness, caramelized, orangey, winey character. So currant, raspberries, orange zest, bordering to yeah, ripe orange, or yeah, orange liqueurs really. And then also sweetness from heather, honey and caramel. Very satisfying nose. Yeah, the peat itself, as I said, pretty much in the middle. So bonfire smoke, not nearly as dry or as Isla South Coast, not at all. And I've had these other bottlings before, some of them at least, and I didn't like the peat all that much. So this really put me off some of the peated expressions from Benriach, but here, different beast altogether. So let's have it neat. Just a tiny sip. The port wood exerts itself right away. Very winey. Lots of red fruit comes to your mind immediately. The currant I was mentioning. And then salt. Salted caramel, salted honey. Orange is just the same. It's all there from the nose. But yeah, salt. Pretty maritime. Melted chocolate now. Bordering to dried fruit, plums perhaps, but pretty straightforward still. Red berries, raspberries. Let's try it with some water. 2 little spoons, espresso spoons full of water. It looks like it mixed now. This perfumey note is gone now. Throw it in the background. But what comes further to the forefront is now this dusty, oaky, orangey character. Presumably the distillery character of Benriach. Still sweet on the nose. Mildly peated, still smoldering ashes. Gorgeous nose. Even with water, more of the same. No real disadvantages, just tiny bit of improvement. Now let's have a sip with water. just as salty as without water. Still pretty maritime. Mouthfeel, very thick, lots of sweetness, coating everything down your throat. The alcohol is still present, of course. It still packs a punch, but it's not in a way that it's either too dry or too salivating. With a little bit of water, so teaspoon full of it in a 2 cl measure would certainly do the trick. Licorice that I had before neat is now diminished a little bit, and it's more on the salted caramel, honeyed, currant, winey side of things. So the portwood, as I said, pretty expressive here. And on the nose, pretty odd, pretty interesting ketchup. Just straight up Heinz Kraft standard ketchup. Some sourness from the vinegar that you have in the ketchup is here imparted, of course, due to the heavy port influence, probably ruby really. But also pretty significant, expressive, explicit tomato. Interesting. What peat does to a whiskey sometimes. Sugared blood oranges, really. The nose, in the nose as well as the palate, leaves nothing to be desired really. It's quite complex and certainly never gets tired. Now one last sip for the finish. It's now pretty velvety as it goes down your throat. Medium to long. Medium, no. Eucalyptus, some licorice still, the oak says goodbye now as it goes down your throat. Pretty warming, orangey, some chocolate, no tomato in the aftertaste. And the peat, very mild, only part of the equation, never in the forefront, never over expressive, not too dry, not too wet. Good stuff. Yeah, very nice whiskey. What would I rate this? If this had another 9 years of port maturation, who knows how this could have fared, even though the cask looked pretty active, might be a little too on the oaky side of things with some more years in the cask, in a cask like this. But since they are now not called single casks anymore, but just cask bottlings, they could have just re-racked this into a more tired cask, I guess. Yeah, great stuff, really. 90 out of 100. It does everything well that it does. No off notes. With some water it even improves, and heavily recommended for those who like peat and strong cask influence. Price wise, still available with some Danish retailers, I believe. Check Whiskybase for a little over 80 euros. But as there are so many different single cask releases still available from Benriach, you can pretty much get lost, or you can really get lost in all the variety and choice. Pretty great stuff. I hope you will have a nice week. I'll see you next time with another bottling here on my table. Then bye bye.